Welcome to the Intalcon webinar, Outperformance for a Better World. Today we want to talk about and we want to present you, first of all, our mission, what Intalcon does and what Intalcon stands for, how we generate alpha and what we do with the alpha. Of course, we want to generate impact. We show you how it's done. But before we start, I would like to introduce ourselves.
My name is Scarlett Eckert. I'm the Managing Director of the Intalcon Foundation, and I'm here to tell you what impact your investment will have.
Great. My name is David Pieper. I'm the co-founder of Intalcon and responsible for all systematic strategies here at Intalcon. And yeah, I will start with the first part. So let's start with how the fund works and of course look at some performance metrics. So first of all, the legal disclaimer, everything that we say in this webinar, of course, is not investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial product. This is just for informational purposes. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the disclaimer. So let's now start. All right, what is Intalcon's mission? We want to keep it short. So what we want to do with Intalcon, what is our business? We provide exceptional returns in finance to generate real impact on sustainable projects. And this is what we call at Intalcon, what we call alpha for impact. We want to generate alpha for investors and then use a significant part of the money we generate for generating impact. We want to leave a contribution here with our work. Now let's jump into the Intalcon Alpha for Impact Global Fund. This is an offshore hedge fund, and this fund has been traded for more than 10 years now, basically as a family and friends fund. So it was exclusively accessible to our own circle. We have invested our own money in this, so we call it skin in the game. And many years we have been observing the discussion around impact investing, especially ESG. And we have been asking ourselves, okay, is this really enough? Is this really enough to just relabel a product, a financial product, call it ESG, and then we all fine, the world will improve? We said no, clearly no. So that was basically the idea of starting our own company, Intalcon, at the end of 2020. And one of our first goals was, of course, to open the fund to professional investors in order to enlarge the fund, in order to grow with the assets under management, in order to provide the returns to external investors, and then being able to use a large part of the proceeds to finance sustainable projects. So to keep it short, what are the goals? First of all, exceptional absolute returns. So we are not depending on the market regime or the environment. And the second one is real impact, and this is what we call alpha for impact. If you look at the current year, so we have a statistic here for the first 6 months. The first one is from Nielsen Hedge. You will see that the Alpha for Impact Global Fund has generated a return of 44%, which makes it the best fund in this category. So among the hedge funds, whether systematic or discretionary. But this is not an outlier. If you look at the average return per annum, this is the 10-year period. We have a compound annual return of 27%. So if you look at the big names here, whether it's Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan or BlackRock, if you look at the average returns on the right side, this is clearly, this is not our, this is no competition for us, to be frankly. If we watch the Barclay Hedge table now for the first 6 months, 12 months here and 36 months below, you can now compare our fund with the big names in the hedge fund space, like AQR or let's say Millennium or Caravel. You can see that both in the last 12 months, we are at the first place, and also for the past 36 months, we have, I think that's the second place, yes. So that really makes sure that you can really see that the exceptional returns are real returns. We have a real track record. This is a fund that has been trading for more than 10 years. So I think that really demonstrates the attractiveness of the fund. Now, if we talk about returns, you're familiar that returns always come with risk. And what I created here is a chart based on the last 5 years. So since 2017, you can see the green line. This is the maximum drawdown on a monthly base of our fund, of the Intalcon fund. And it's compared to traditional benchmarks like MSCI World or WGBI for bonds and the S&P commodities benchmark. You can clearly see we have a strict risk management because we invest our own money. This is one of the main goals for our own money, to keep the risk low. And so we want to keep durations of drawdowns short, and the magnitude should be also small. Now, it sounds really perfect if you look at this, right? High returns, low drawdowns. How can that work? Or how do you generate these successful metrics? So here are the sources of the fund on a general basis. We are not depending on the market environment. That means we are trading very actively on the long side and also on the short side. That means we are not forecast based, or we are not buy and hold investors hoping that the macro forecast will be fulfilled and we are on the right side of the market. No, we just do what the market tells us to do. We use both algorithmic and discretionary decision models. So it's a combination of both. We think this is the best approach to work with. And as I said on one of the earlier slides, we have a very strict risk management. That means every single position is being protected by a stop loss. We always know where we are wrong. So there is no ego thing involved, hoping and betting that we might get the right result, or the market is wrong. We have to get on the right path and so on. No, we just make clear this is our hypothesis. This is the price action, and if we are wrong, the position gets out of the portfolio. One thing that might be interesting to you, of course, is the high diversification. So I will show you on the next slide. We are very diversified. And we make sure that the fund doesn't have any correlation with traditional benchmarks. When it comes to the liquidity, we just trade liquid exchange-traded instruments. That means especially futures markets, but also stocks. The fund is always invested 51% in equities. This is for some tax reasons here in Germany. And to round it up, the fund is very flexible. That means we have a clear opportunistic approach, and we are highly adaptable to market changes. Let's look at the next slide. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the development of this year. If you look at stocks and bonds, you can clearly see that the high inflation rates have changed the correlation between stocks and bonds, right? So you can see in this chart, which is from Bridgewater, you can see that the gray areas show you high inflationary environments. And you can see that the correlation between equities and bonds tends to rise clearly into the positive territory. That means it makes it really hard to make returns with the simple 60-40 stocks and bonds portfolio. And I think that's why many investors have been surprised this year to see bonds going down and equities going down at the same time. So this is a very important market regime change, we think, also in the long term, that you really need to think about your portfolio and to see whether you are diversified enough. And we are pretty sure that many investors, also the large investors, are really required to add some diversifiers, real diversifiers into their portfolios. We think that the Intalcon Fund is the great solution for this. Why? Because we diversify across three different, let's call it dimensions, right? So first of all, we trade different time frames. What does that mean? You can see the first chart on the left. This is the same market, but it's traded on an hourly, daily, weekly chart. That could be more time frames. That means we can cut out a single piece out of a trend movement or a breakout movement using different time frames, or for example, enter a trend movement in several tranches and then exit and scale out in the same way. That makes it much easier to diversify the performance and not being dependent on the market move itself. In the middle chart, you can see this is just a simple overview, but there are many strategies that we put into work. That means we try to diversify across different trading models or different trading approaches, because there is no approach that works all the time in the markets. There are market regimes where you can trade and make money with breakouts only. Then you need a mean reversion, maybe you need some other things. So we try to mix that up. And on the right side, of course, we use every kind of futures market, whether it's financial futures, commodity futures. And also we diversify in our stocks portfolio. We have several hundreds positions. So all these things together makes it a real and reliable diversification. If you look at this chart, this is the correlation based on the last 5 years. Based on monthly returns, you can see there is basically no correlation at all to traditional benchmarks. Some benchmarks even enjoy a negative correlation. Now let's put it together, risk and return. We are looking here at the diagram. You can see the horizontal line, this is the volatility, 5-year volatility per annum, and the vertical scale shows you the annual return of the last 5 years. And you can clearly see that Intalcon has made around 40% per year in the last 5 years, while the volatility is clearly higher than, for example, in the MSCI World or even in the commodity space. But we think that the volatility makes it worth, because we are paid with much higher returns, right? So if you look at the combined picture, looking at the Sharpe ratio, you can see in the last 3 and 5 years, we had Sharpe ratio of around 2 and 1.4. So even on a risk-adjusted level, we clearly outperform any given benchmark. And that's why we what we call exceptional returns, and especially absolute returns. Now, I would like to conclude with a simple simulation. What I have done here is I created a simple overview here of a 60-40 portfolio, so that the black line shows you the performance since 2017 and the Sharpe ratio, which was around 0.8. So it was easy to make money while bonds and equities are rising, of course. But now we want to think about what happens if we add a little bit of allocation into the Intalcon fund in such an existing portfolio. What will happen? And you can see on this slide then that even adding 5 or 10%, or let's stick with 10%. With 10%, if we add 10% and leave the rest, the 90% in the 60-40, you can see that the Sharpe ratio already doubles. And this is what I think really significant. If you can double the Sharpe ratio with an addition of 10% of the Intalcon investment. So that clearly shows us that we are on the right path. We have a low correlated vehicle with great returns, and now it's accessible to all professional investors. Now, I showed you lots of charts and lots of metrics, and we have been talking about markets, but why do we do this? I would like to conclude and to pass over to my colleague Scarlett here with a quote by Antonio Guterres, who says, "It is both ethical and good business sense to invest in sustainable development for all people on a healthy planet." And that's what we clearly believe in, and that's why we started Intalcon in the first place. And just to give you a rough idea, we have a hurdle rate of 10% in the fund, and then there is a success fee of 25%. So that means we take a large part of this and put it into the foundation, which then creates impact with this. And my colleague Scarlett will tell you about the Intalcon Foundation right now, and afterwards we are available for questions.
Thank you, David. Yeah, now I hope after all these impressive numbers, statistics and charts, you are curious to know what impact your investment will have. David already said we will donate, or a huge part is donated to the Intalcon Foundation. It's exactly 20% of the performance and management fee and 20% of the annual profit of the Intalcon GmbH. And that's quite a huge amount compared to what other companies donate. And we decided to finance projects that help to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. You probably, or hopefully all know these goals. We think that they provide a really good framework. And currently we support 3 organizations. And I would like to let you know why did we pick those three. First of all, we think that they care about the biggest challenges for our future, which are the provision of drinking water, the climate crisis, and the protection of biodiversity. And second, they all have one thing in common with us. They are outperforming in their field of action. Let me give you some insights now of what they do. And let's start with CARE. CARE is one of the world's largest aid organizations. And if there's a human crisis, you can count on CARE. It's not a secret that there are dramatic water shortages all over the world, especially, of course, for example, in Africa or in South America. But you may have also heard of the current drought crisis in northern Italy, for example. And you probably know that we cannot eat for a while. That's okay, but we are not able to survive without water for more than 3 days. So this is a very critical situation, and that's why we promote CARE's activities to provide clean drinking water. And those activities, for example, include the construction of water supply systems, which are, for example, public standpipes, boreholders, and wells, and other solutions in emergency situations are purifying chlorine tablets and hygiene kits. The second organization we support is Oceans 2050. The name says it already. They care about the oceans, and they do different things, but we concentrate on their global seaweed project. And to date, little attention has been paid to the ability of seaweed to store carbon, because it grows really fast and it doesn't require fresh water. And it is up to 50 times more effective than planting trees. So this is quite astonishing, we thought, and we investigated more, and there are other benefits of seaweed besides storing carbon. It also protects against coastal erosion, and it helps to increase the population of fish. And seaweed also provides new jobs. They are building up new industries. It, of course, can be used for the production of food, but also for plastics and fuel and cosmetics. So this project is not only good to combat the climate crisis. The next NGO we support is Rewild. So they are taking care about the wild side on our planet. They're taking care about biodiversity and the protection of species. And we particularly support a project that aims at the survival of the saola, which you can see on the picture here. The saola is a very rare animal that lives in the Annamite Mountains in Indochina. And that area is very special because it's one of the most biodiverse locations on Earth. And this project will not only have impact for the saola, but for other species as well. And why do we need to protect biodiversity? Why is this so important? Because it enables all life on Earth. And without a wide range of animals, of plants and microorganisms, we will have not a healthy ecosystem that will provide us with the air we breathe and the food we eat. So it's very basic and we just cannot live without it. And the problem is that the extinction of one species can cause a chain reaction, and this can lead to a destruction of a whole ecosystem. And Rewild wants to save the saola from extinction by anti-poaching initiatives, by securing the habitat and the mentoring of local communities, by conservation breeding, and finally the reintroduction into the wild. We are very happy to work with these organizations and finance their projects, but of course we are working on more solutions to promote further SDGs. And I'm lucky that we are not alone. I'm proud to tell you that we are backed by some notable personalities. who are committed to our mission and who form the advisory board of the Intalcon Foundation. Those members advise, for example, in selecting the right organizations and projects, and they also help with their great network. And I would like to point out 3 of them. First of all, Alexandra Cousteau. She is founder and president of Oceans 2050, I just told you about. And she's the granddaughter of Jacques Cousteau. You probably heard that name. He was a very famous ocean explorer. And she was born with love for the ocean, but she also grew up with an ocean that was in a better condition than it's today. And for her children, she's committed to restore abundance to the ocean by 2050. And that's the reason for the name of the organization. And second, Dr. Andreas Jacobs, who is a professional investor and also invested in the fund already. Among others, he's chairman of the board of NC Business School, and he continues the social engagement of the Jacobs coffee family. We also have Michael Stich on board. He's known as a professional tennis player, but he's also committed to human health and has his own foundation that supports children who are affected with HIV and suffering from AIDS. The advisory board and the whole team at Intalcon, we are all committed to use our individual skills to enable life on Earth for future generations. But one thing is clear, we can just achieve this if we all work together. And that's my request to you. Please be part of our mission and turn Alpha into impact. Thank you.